Hey everyone, my name is Jesse Taylor. Thank you for being here at our webinar about the paradigm shift to automated quoting. Really exciting conversation for everyone here today. I want to start off by introducing our panel of guests. I also want to talk through a little bit about the current state and challenges with spot quoting in the truckload market today. Then talk at a high level about some of our solutions and how the paradigm is shifting to solve for a lot of these issues. And then I'll introduce Stephanie Jensen, who is our head of product in charge of Advantage. And then finally, we will hear from Tyler Gilpin, who is a longtime Parade customer and is now using Parade's Advantage auto quoting tool to win lots of profitable freight. So let's jump right in. I want to start by talking a bit about the current state of spot quoting. Most brokerages are currently using a few main levers for coming up with spot quotes and a couple of main methods for submitting those spot quotes. So most brokers are submitting spot quotes by responding to shippers' emails or going out to those shippers' digital bid boards. So those are becoming increasingly common, those shipper bid boards. And we are having our broker customers are going out and manually quoting, clicking one by one to submit their quotes out there. This is really difficult to scale because if it takes a person a few seconds or on average around 5 to 8 minutes to go and figure out what is the best quote to submit there, we are going to be missing out on a lot of freight. The way that brokers are coming up with these rates today, in most cases, really falls back to three main methods. The first is historical rates. What have I procured capacity in the recent past for on these lanes? The second is using mental calculators. Do I have a rock star rep who can deeply understand what kind of rate I can get in the market right now? And then finally, there is using market indices and tacking on some blanket margin strategy on top of that. So that third one is actually the most common based on my conversations with many, many brokers. So they're using market indices saying, hey, here's what the market rate is. Let me tack on my 10, 15% margin, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on how aggressive they want to get. But that's basically that. So they can go figure out what's that market rate and then submit their quote. That is much faster than if they had to go out to their carrier network or if they had to go and consult the pricing guru that sits across the hall, or if they have to go into their TMS to figure out what have they've been paying in the past. It's faster. It's not necessarily better because what you get is there's no differentiation when you're submitting those quotes. If you and every single one of your other competitors are all submitting some rate based on the market rate and that's it, what are you doing to differentiate yourself? Your competitive advantage is your capacity. So we'll get into that a little bit later, but it is hard to differentiate. It's hard to scale and quote at scale when you are doing it all manually. And finally, it's not very scientific. It's really tough to track win rate when it comes to quoting on spot freight, especially when you're doing it manually. Because if you are quoting on 100 loads, are you recording every single quote that you submitted? Are you matching those quotes to actual loads won? It's hard to implement and test and iterate on margin strategies when there is no mechanism for reporting on it and adjusting and making tweaks along the way. So those are some of the key challenges with doing this manually and not using quoting rating intelligence. But things are really quickly starting to change. More and more brokers are realizing, hey, I'm missing out on a lot of freight just because I depend on my individual rep's bandwidth to go and quote that manually. So they are going and quoting hundreds of loads per hour now. And we're seeing the marginal cost to submit a quote go down to $0. It costs me the same amount of time to go and quote on one load versus 200 loads. And that is why we're starting to see a massive increase in the amount of quotes that brokers are actually submitting. But there are some really important pieces of this that need to be in place for you to go and do that confidently and to have profitability in mind. Because if everybody's doing this auto quoting based on those market indices, it can be really hard to differentiate yourself. everybody is going based on those market indices. So you have to resort to razor thin margins to actually win freight. And unless you are basing your auto quoted rate on what you can actually buy a truck for, you're going to miss out on margin and oftentimes just break even or even oh, end out the week, the day, week, or month on a loss. So whenever you're doing any kind of automation, it has to be based on some real-time intelligence. Nevertheless, more and more brokers are moving to this auto quoting so that individual reps can spend less time quoting and more time building relationships. We're firm believers here, and our customers agree that people, individual human beings, should be spending more time on the meaningful human relationship with that shipper, with that carrier, what have you, and less time clicking screens. That is really where things are shifting. And now we're starting to see the impact of getting left behind. I talked to a broker just the other day who told me that he goes out to one of his shippers' load boards, bid boards, submits his best quote, and then 6 seconds later, that quote is being beat out by $25 by some other broker. It's because much of the time, those other brokers have bots that are going out and quoting and auto quoting and looking at what's the rate and how do I get down on that. There is a race to the bottom there. So you need to be able to quote at scale, but you need to be able to quote at scale at a rate that you can actually cover the truck for. Because if you are quoting on lots of freight that you're going to lose money on automatically at scale, that's not the direction that most brokers want to be moving in. Nonetheless, not having any sort of quoting automation in place, most brokers are seeing money fly past the car as it's driving down the highway. So we want to go and figure out how do I increase my quote volume and also do it at good rates. But the bottom line is everybody's going to need a solution in place for this because it is going to become the expectation. Anybody who isn't automatically quoting in several years here is going to be missing out on freight that they could have won, and they could have won profitably. So next I want to introduce Stephanie Jensen, who's our head of product in charge of Advantage, and she will walk through our solution to this, how we are getting automatically quoting, getting our brokerage customers automatically quoting on lots of people's spot freight, but also quoting at intelligent rates based on their unique ability to procure capacity today. Everything with profitability in mind. So, Stephanie, the floor is all yours.
Thanks, Jesse. Now let's spend a little time diving into the technology and looking into the pieces of how auto quoting with Advantage works. So in order to auto quote, there are 5 major components of the technology. First and foremost, the most foundational piece is the carrier price model. And this is an understanding of what your unique to the truck costs are for your brokerage. And here at Parade, we base this off of the idea of your capacity advantage. Your capacity is your buying power. The strength of your relationships and your network is what allows you to buy at a different rate in the market. So at Parade, about 2 years ago, we launched our Advantage tool. You can see our manual UI here, and it's based on this Advantage carrier price, which takes into account your capacity, your delivering trucks, the quotes that you've received, the lane preferences that you've entered, emails that we're scraping, searches on our Parade carrier portal. All of this comes together, combined with your historical buying power to deliver a personalized rate, real-time price signals for you and your brokerage. And this is the cornerstone of automated bidding with Advantage. The next ingredient to a successful bidding strategy is, of course, your margin strategy. So we take your predicted carrier costs from a carrier price model and then layer on the strategic element around what your target markup should be. And this is really the calculus between your expected win rate versus profit, and at what point do we maximize your expected profit for bid. The way that we handle this in Advantage is a 2-pronged approach. First and foremost, basing your markup strategy off on top of your predicted costs, but then also tying in some guardrails with respect to the DAP market rate to ensure that you're not leaving money on the table. If, say, for example, you've got a really large predicted advantage, but we don't want to way undercut the market rate when we could win probably pretty likely at a higher price. So a two-pronged approach to the default bidding strategy. And then we also handle exceptions. And this is done at the load level. So if it's an awkward transit time, overweight load, you can adjust your margin strategy for those exceptional scenarios. You can differentiate your strategy by customer and by geography and equipment. So all this comes together in a single UI for the broker to manage. And we also bring in a feedback loop so we can tell you if what are the results of that strategy? How many bid opportunities are you getting in this particular scenario? How many are you actually bidding on? What is your win rate? What is your profit? And giving you all the information that you need to turn the dials effectively and optimize that strategy. Once we have that rate, the next step is to get in front of as many shippers as possible. Here at Parade, we take a multi-pronged approach to shipper connectivity. The idea isn't to force any particular paradigm, but really to meet the shippers where they're at. I think we'll find a lot of freight opportunities on each of these three approaches. So the methods of connectivity we have are RPA bidding or bots on spot boards. Number two, API rating into shipper TMSs directly. And then three, foreshadowing our roadmap here a little bit, will be email automation, a plugin that will sit within your email client and pre-calculate those carrier costs and to the customer rates. On the RPA side, as Jesse alluded to, this is a really helpful way of taking advantage of those boards that brokers are often sitting on and not taking full use of. Those really large spot boards. It's not worth the human's time to quote, but a great solution for a bot to go through and find those diamonds in the rough from those big boards. Another great use case for RPA rating on spot boards is when a shipper really needs you to respond quickly. Say it's a large shipper that sets a book now rate, they often award it to the first broker who bids that book now rate. And if we're having a bot be able to bid really quickly, that's a great strategy to gain market share on some of those boards. We've also had a great success in just deepening relationships with core customers that the broker was maybe winning a good amount of freight on before, but just kind of going all in on spot can help brokers strengthen relationships with core shippers as well. The next piece is the API rating, and this is really exciting because depending on how the shipper implements it, it's a way to get a foot in the door for basically every freight opportunity out there before it even reaches the spot market. You can have your rates right next to the contracted rates in the routing guide on certain platforms. And this is a great way to increase the size of the spot market pie, increase the amount of freight available to your brokerage. So we also believe there's a lot of value there. And then the last piece, a lot of freight is conducted via email today, and especially for smaller shippers, we expect that to continue to be the case for a while longer. So if we can bring consistency, bring scientific rigor, increase the speed to respond to the freight that's transacted via email, this is also a huge opportunity. The next critically important step after submitting a bid is to actually be able to see what happened to it. And this is something that we believe differentiates the Advantage platform from some of our competitors. We have bots that will scrape the tenders from bid boards, and then we're able to match it with the loads that are coming into Parade. So we see really accurately what your win rate is and what the profit is on the loads that you're winning. And this is all brought full circle into one platform. And then finally, as I alluded to previously, once we know what loads we're winning, then we can come full circle and see what are the results of our bidding strategy. You have in one place on one platform, kind of turning the dials for your strategy, connecting into shippers, and then seeing what the results are and optimizing your strategy from there. So this is something that we believe is really important. Here at Parade, we offer a single pane of glass into your bidding strategy, and this encompasses automated freight based on API, RPA, or in the future email capabilities. We also bring in any manual quoting that a rep has done using the Advantage tool. Within one click while your pricing loads in the app, you can record your bid, and then that data will also be available for management and coaching purposes. So we see kind of across all of the bidding activity within your brokerage, the bids that were submitted. You can slice and dice it by lanes or customers or users, and ultimately see your profit funnel over time. See that the bids that you're submitting, your win rate and profit, and being able to have all of the tools at your disposal to optimize those dials and win more freight. Parade is the only auto quoting solution in the market that delivers each of these elements of the technology. And this, we believe, is really critically important. Parade as a platform is accountable for winning you profit, not for predicting your carrier costs, not for connecting to as many shipper platforms as possible, but fundamentally the end result. And in fact, that's how we get paid, as a percentage of profit, not by loads won, not by platforms connected to, but fundamentally the profit we earn. And I'm personally really excited about this as it aligns our incentives. So we develop a product roadmap. We are incredibly motivated to build what will work in terms of delivering profit for our brokers. I think that's one of the biggest differentiators about this product. Right. And now we're here with Tyler Gilpin from Fortune Logistics. He's one of our first and very successful customers with auto quoting with Advantage. Tyler, so great to have you here. Could you just briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I took over the Fortune Logistics portion of the business as a spinoff from our asset company in 2019. And we've grown and developed that the old-fashioned way, if you will, just through relationships with carriers, relationships with customers, and lining those two things up. One of the big things that we've always had trouble with is the speed of our spot market capabilities.
Awesome. Could you share a little bit about what your kind of experience has been with Parade and your top business priorities going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So initially we started with Parade due to the automated rate cons, right? So we were able to do digital bookings with our carrier network to speed up our reps bookings. We keep a metric called BPR, it's bookings per rep. We wanted to see that increase without adding volume in the office. So the ability to book more loads with the same amount of people and the digital rate confirmations and the digital bookings was the key to success for us and the reason we chose Parade.
Awesome. And now kind of here with Advantage and auto quoting, can you share a little bit kind of what drove you to that product?
Yeah, it was a bolt-on, of course, to what we had already built, just facing the other direction. We'd really good success automating with the carrier side. And when the option to automate with our customers became available, it was realistically a no-brainer on our end. The ability to use our carrier's network of rates and submit those on behalf of them to our customers in an automated fashion was an easy solution for us to say yes to.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Can you share a little bit about some of the specific pain points you think that Advantage has helped you with, and kind of particularly around improving your win rates and profitability in the spot market?
Yeah, definitely. So every customer is different, right? Some people will put a spot load out on the spot market for days on end and wait for the price that they want to get that rid of. Some people post out for an hour and just need the load gone out of their system. And so what we were noticing was real on a consumer, on a rep basis, our reps were tied up on spot markets all day instead of building a relationship, and still missing out on those opportunities where somebody would essentially flash post a spot market load and pull it down once it got bid. And so it was, not only was it a time drain on the rep, but we were also still missing opportunities at the same time.
Gotcha. Yeah, I love kind of being able to free up reps to focus more on the relationship side. Related to that, and of how do you think spot quoting with Advantage, so you've done the RPA bots to date, how has bidding on those spot boards automatically kind of impacted your relationships with the shippers that you're bidding with?
Yeah, so given that I'm skeptic from the beginning, regardless of the software and how much I trust, the people that I'm working with, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't pricing that was just out of the box publicly available data. Otherwise, if everybody's using the same tools, then you're all going to spit the same rate out to the customer and they're going to essentially pick their favorite from there. So that was my biggest concern from my end. Once I was able to see the rate algorithms work in our favor with our carrier network and the data that we actually have in our system that spit out a Fortune proprietary rate to that customer on an automated basis, it settled the nerves. And again, it's our carrier's pricing, so it's accurate.
And in terms of kind of deepening the relationships with the particular shippers that you're auto quoting with, kind of what is the result then? You've been doing this for a few months now at this point.
Yeah, obviously the volume at which we've been bidding spot market freight has increased tenfold, which is a service add to the customer. So they've appreciated that side of it. The profitability metric internally, of course, being that it's our carrier rates plus margin has been a great success. And then of course, there's a lot of customers that are just moving in this direction, that they're
Yeah.
going to take those automated rates and run with them. And we didn't want to be left behind on that.
Awesome. Curious about the more strategic aspect. How has kind of pricing with advantage impacted your ability to analyze and improve your quoting strategies?
So on our end, there are lanes that we run in our network on a daily basis, and there are lanes that we don't run very often, and both of those land on spot markets from time to time. And so with the lanes that we were less comfortable with or less exposed to, we were able to lean on our carrier's network and our carrier's pricing to get a confident rate instead of just looking at markets and making an educated guess. We were actually able to use real-time data on what our carriers would be hauling that for and submit it that way.
Awesome. Yeah, and then just looking, I think overall as the ROI of Advantage, kind of could you speak to how kind of valuable you found the tool overall, and then also to share that our specific business model kind of hinges in large part on profit sharing and risk sharing, which personally I think really aligns our incentives well. Could you share your perspective on that?
Yeah, definitely. So, the other side of the table there is why can't the reps just do it themselves and get that done? But again, with the shortcomings that we saw from the speed and the sheer volume of spot freight that was coming through, we knew that that wasn't going to be able to be handled manually. And then the pricing model being a profit share, it was essentially just an extra rep that was bidding all that spot market freight. So if we're making money on the freight, we're paying essentially a commission to Advantage, and that way if there's one that goes wrong and we end up having to take a loss on the load, we're not still paying for the service. And then of course if we do fantastic on the load, we're paying a fair commission to the rep or Advantage in this case, if you will, just like we would in our own internal with a real human doing it.
Looking forward, how do you see Advantage playing a role in your brokerage's future growth and strategy?
Yeah, as we grow more and more customers, we're going to see an increase in volume, whether that be on the contract market or the spot market. Just the sheer numbers, as every customer we add is going to add more work onto our reps plate. And with the use of automation on that, we're going to be able to scale effectively without increasing large quantities of people in the office. And so the big thing that I'm looking forward to working with Parade on is the API pricing, where we'll be able to go in and fall in a customer's waterfall with one of those API priced rates to avoid that customer having to use the spot market altogether.
Yeah. And is the API rating something that you're seeing your shippers increasingly demanding?
Yeah, definitely. I think some of our higher tech shippers are already using it. And so we're already behind. I think if you're not using some sort of API pricing model or automation, you're also behind. And we've seen several customers reach out to us to ask if we have that as an available option. And so I see that trend continuing as we get further and further into the year and next year.
Awesome. Yeah, Tyler, we're so excited to kind of continue to grow with Fortune and really appreciate your team's partnership and the design here at Parade. We very design partner centric approach to building products, and kind of excited to kind of grow our product with your team. It's been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, we're looking forward to growing with you guys as well.